Hello and welcome to another episode of How Are You Holding Up? A mental health podcast by the depressed for the depressed. I'm Lindsey.
And I'm Chris.
And the first question I want to ask is, Chris, how are you holding up?
I'm sick.
Yes, you are. Chris is currently sitting next to me with a face mask.
I'm making sure Lindsey don't get sick too.
A very pretty blue mask.
It's very good at keeping people not sick. Even though it feels like I'm mildly suffocating, and I probably sound like I'm just like a very odd accent away from being Bane. That's okay. I'm okay with this. This is my life now.
I appreciate you making the podcast anyway.
You're so very welcome. And how are you holding up?
I am not very good today.
No. You want to discuss what's going on?
I wasn't feeling very great to begin with. I'm going through probably the post-festivities slump. Hey guys, if you survived the holidays, welcome on the other side.
Oh yeah, happy 2019, guys.
Happy 2019, here we are. So there's always that. And then I was feeling kind of bad about finances because some things fell through. So I don't have the monies I thought I was going to have. Mm-hmm. And then right before I came over to record this very podcast, I found out that one of the women who raised me, because I had a lot of nannies, my mom was a single working mom, was killed. And so I am processing that currently.
I'm so sorry for that.
Thank you. So I'm probably disassociating a little bit weird, but here I am.
There's a lot going on in everybody's lives, especially when things like that happen and just kind of hit you out of the blue.
Yeah, it's weird because I was like fine, and then I got into my car and I like couldn't breathe, and I started hyperventilating, and then I went numb and I drove over here.
And first thing I noticed was your 1,000-yard stare. So yeah, we were all kind of in that boat of just like, this is not a good start to this year.
No, it's not.
But you did mention something that I thought was very interesting, and it kind of helped us pick the topic this week, which is on memory.
Yes, memory.
And that was that you remembered this particular person.
Yeah.
Well, or at least well enough.
Better than the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting perspective when you have somebody who passes that you may not have been particularly close with, but they were definitely a part of your life, and they were a part of your life for a good part of it. And I'm sure we talked about this maybe on our death and loss episode, but everybody has their own way of mourning someone. It doesn't matter how close you are if that person is somebody who's affected you in one way or another.
Yeah, because I was telling Chris, I feel kind of like it's so weird. I don't have a right to mourn certain people who I don't know currently really well. You know, like we don't talk every day, or it's been a couple of years, or like I feel like the people who are close to them, who see them all the time, they have more of a right than I do. And so this was a weird one because it's like, well, it's been, many years, but obviously it's affecting me, so.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that we always need to address, especially when it's affecting you as much as it can. So this week we're going to be talking about how depression affects memory and vice versa.
Yeah.
As well as just memory in general. It's not something that often people get into the nitty-gritty of, but there's a lot of things to discuss about it.
And I think memory really, it creates our relationship to the world and how we feel about ourselves and
especially
our family, and if the world is a safe place or not. So starting off, one of the things that you and I have both noticed when we get into a depressive funk is that we can't remember good things in our lives. I personally have a very difficult time remembering good times when I'm feeling like I don't particularly deserve
to feel good about things, especially if I'm in that state of no, you need to suffer right now. You need to feel shitty about yourself. Don't you cling to those positives. Because those good things that you can think of, all the good people and the good things you've had in your life, they're for others. They're for others who deserve them.
Yeah.
So that's something that's, without a doubt, one of the shittier parts of the depression attacking memory. Because we have so much goodness that we can all cling to. Even if we don't feel like it, it's still there.
I don't understand why, for me, the negatives are just so intensely crystal clear. I mean, I can remember some things that were awful and painful, and then I try to remember things I know that were lovely and happy, and I know that I had a good time, but I just can't recall that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't lift my spirits. This is mostly when I'm depressed.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, and I don't know if this is related to the fact that I was diagnosed with PTSD or if it's just genetics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a great memory. I have huge, years where there's just nothing for my younger formative years.
Mm-hmm.
But some of my earliest memories are either scary or violent or sad.
Yeah.
And I think when I talk to some people who've never experienced depression, all of their really early memories are pretty happy, pretty light. You know, my first memory was bubble bath, or I was playing with my sister and we got candy, and and mine's I remember when there was violence happening in the house and I had to be taken outside and kept away from the violence.
Yeah.
And I remember when there was an earthquake that made me feel like the world could just fall apart in any moment.
Yeah, especially those of us who've grown up and we've had disasters.
Disasters, yeah.
If you were a young child and suddenly your world was upended by, in both our cases, earthquakes.
Yeah.
That's kind of a thing that growing up in Southern California, you'll have earthquakes, but I mean, I was alive for the Northridge quake, and I was living in Simi Valley, and that was absolutely terrifying to me because we were on the second floor, and we were less than, I would say, 10 minutes away from Northridge? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we got rock and rolled quite hard, and it was that introduction early on to, hey, there's some scary shit out there. Yeah,
when you're little and your brain is still figuring stuff out, and wow, I really have no. This could, a big scary thing could happen at any time, and then weird stuff happens in your brain that tries to protect you. I mean, we had to take everything off the walls in my bedroom. We took basically everything out of the bedroom because the aftershocks were so big, and we just laid mattresses across the floor. My mom would sleep with me and my sister, and or my sister and I, rather.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of, it's a weird. It's. And I don't know how that affected me, long term. But when you look back and you're like, cool. So the first, 10 memories were pretty bad.
So one of the things that I find it kind of introduces when you have that kind of mentality where there's just all the bad things you remember so clearly and all the good things kind of become blurs is, I mean, at least in my mind, all of my days blur into one. Yeah. I don't know if that's something that you also share, where if you ask me what I was doing last week, I could tell you I worked. I could tell you I ate food.
Yeah.
I could tell you that I think last week was Christmas. I don't remember.
Oh my gosh, I just did the same thing where I was I don't think it was.
Well, I mean, we had New Year's Eve this week.
So almost 10 days.
Yeah, so it's been a while. But it feels like it might have been last week to me. This is genuinely how my brain works, is I can't, if you ask me, what were you doing on this date? I'd be like, let me look at my calendar, because there's no way in hell that I'm going to remember what was going on at any point of the day. My days are just all blurred into one.
I wonder if that's something that most people start experiencing as they get older? No, I don't think so, because I talked to people who are like, well, on January 8th in 2017, I did this one thing and it was really great. And then in like last week on the 13th, and I was like, God, I didn't even know last week was the 13th. Oh, I guess you're right. Like, I just cannot recall that stuff. I mean, I'll have moments where, like, oh yeah, I had that really yummy thing, or oh, I tried that dress on and I liked it, or I hung out with that person. Was that last week or was it the week before? You know?
Well, which is funny because you and I both did theater. We could memorize an entire play.
Yes.
No problem. We could sit down, we could run it for a few weeks, and guess what? We would have the whole thing memorized backwards and forwards. We'd know our cues.
Other people's cues.
We would know other people's cues, yeah. And we would get to a point where we could just go, yeah, whatever you need, I can fill in that role.
Yeah.
I could be an understudy for this person, and this person.
Yeah. We were great at that.
But now I think about it, I'm like, yeah, if I had to do that now, probably be a little bit of a challenge.
I think it is like muscle memory.
Sure.
Part of it. So what I'm wondering is, if your memory is muscle, sort of, something that you practice, if you practice only remembering the bad things, does that become something that you do even if you're not depressed, you retain those bad things?
That's kind of what I was curious about.
Addictive.
I was curious about that myself, to the point where if I tried what I did earlier this week on a separate account was I made like an Instagram story where I was like, I'm going to go through last year. Yeah. I'm going to go through each month and I'm going to pick out one positive thing that happened every month last year. And I had to try and find at least one good thing that I had some sort of evidence of. And I really took the time and the patience, and I went through all my photos, I went through Facebook posts, I went through everything.
Wow. And
I was just like, what was going on at this time of the year? Okay, well, this time of the year I was in Baltimore. Or this time of the year I was
hanging out with
friends. I was spending time in Vegas. I was doing this, that, you name it. And it really kind of helped me take inventory of who I am, what I did, how I spent my year, and it really kind of allowed me to refocus those efforts on trying to keep the good stuff forward than the bad stuff forward, which, as time has gone on, it has become difficult again. But that's just it, is, yeah, you will take time, you will take energy, you will take effort in order to make those things muscle memory. Make the good things so easy to pull up.
Maybe journaling is something I should start doing, so I can look back and have like an angry journal and a happy journal. Because I usually focus on just, I don't know. Maybe I felt for a long time that the negative stuff was more interesting.
Conflict breeds change. Change brings growth. Yeah. That kind of thing.
I don't know.
I could see that as definitely being a case for why negatives would stick around longer, is, at the very least, when something bad happens to you, you learn from it, you grow from it, and you know never to experience that ever again.
Yeah.
But on that same token, it's that fear that becomes a problem. It's the difference between, like, when somebody disciplines their child, you have multiple ways of doing it. You can be physically abusive, spanking or yelling, and really just getting in someone's face. Or you could show them that this is a bad thing to do, here is why, and reason can take over at that point. They will learn that it might not necessarily hurt them, but it's just not something good to do. It teaches morals in a different way, rather than through the threat of physical violence.
Right.
Which we then associate with, this is the person I love, they can hurt me, so that gives me the right to hurt people I love.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like it's a weird cyclical thing at that point.
Well, so depression affecting memory. So, yeah, we have a hard time recalling happy. I remember we've talked about this a few times, I feel like, on the podcast. Like, we know that happy things happen to us. Hell, we can even think of, like, the party that we were at, and we know we had a good time, but we cannot recall the feeling.
Yeah, especially when we're down.
And then sometimes you don't want to recall the positives when you're super down because it makes you feel worse.
That's definitely a big point of it.
How does it affect you?
When I get to that point where I'm like, I don't want to think about happy things because I feel like shit afterwards, then I know that it's just like, well, then what do I want to feel right now?
Yeah.
Do I want to feel shitty? Do I want to feel good for a little bit, then shitty afterwards?
Does it make you feel worse afterwards because you're not experiencing that now, or does it make you feel worse because you want to experience it and you can't?
Yes.
Yes. Same.
Yeah. It's definitely the inclusive or. It's a genuine feeling of I want this now, but I can't have this now.
It's so frustrating when it feels like it's your ability to enjoy stuff is taken away and you had no say in it.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
That you are not in control of your own destiny. You're not in control of your own life.
Frustrating.
It's absolutely frustrating. I think something that adds into it is also the longer that memories are, the further back they go, the more that our perspective twists what we think we remember.
This is true.
And it's something that's, when you're having interpersonal relationships with people, I mean, what other kind of relationships at that point?
Interpersonal relations.
Yes. Then you will remember something completely different from how someone else will remember that same exact thing.
Yeah, they say that there's 3 sides to the story, right? What they remember, what you remember, and what actually happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's completely true. It's why memory is such a delicate, fragile, weird thing. Like, you can spend, I don't know, a month doing the same thing over and over, every day, day in, day out, and then come back next year having not done that thing at all, and you can go, oh, that was the worst. I remember hating every minute of it, and it was so miserable. Or you could remember it going, no, I actually felt really good doing that thing.
Satisfied.
Yeah, I felt really satisfied. I did a thing over and over for a month.
You know, you'd think that by this point I would know the signs of depression coming. But looking back, I saw it when I was coming to... So this last week I had work. I was like work by project.
Mm-hmm.
And I started noticing that I just couldn't retain certain things that like certain codes and stuff I had to like type in or whatever. I just couldn't remember them. And usually I learn it for like a day or two and then, it's pretty easy and I just remember. I don't have to keep looking and checking for it. But I could not retain it. And I've been fuzzy brained. That's the other thing. Memory and fuzzy brainness. What is that? What is fuzzy brain?
Fuzzy brain, I really wish I knew too, because I get that
It's
more.
So weird.
I've gotten that a lot the last few weeks, in particular. It's just I'm not all here.
Yeah, you're not. It's like you're not in your body entirely. You're not in the moment, and you can want to be. And the weirdest thing for me is when someone's talking at me and I zone out, and I go into a complete. And I'm like, what? It's not that the person is saying something I'm not interested in.
No. They could very well be.
Focus.
No, there's very much we're disassociating from a conversation at that point.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And I was like, well, maybe I just have really bad ADD because I was diagnosed with ADD. And I was like, well, maybe it's worse than I thought it was. Like, I was diagnosed years ago in high school. I thought it was a rage diagnosis, honestly. I think everybody was diagnosed with it in our generation. But now I'm like, well, maybe I do have ADD or I don't know.
I don't know either, because I felt similarly over the last few years. It's been that same way where I'm like, well, maybe I have like weird adult onset ADHD or something.
Yes.
And I don't know. It could be any of these things. All I know is that my brain don't work the way it does.
And that's, I think, when the brain fog settles in, and that's when the days start bleeding into one, and that's when, for me... my language gets really weird. So like language memory. And I start speaking differently. Example, I start stuttering a little bit more because it takes me a minute to recall words. I'm somebody who really enjoys debate. I enjoy public speaking to a certain extent, theater and whatnot. Sure. I get nervous, but I enjoy it when I'm doing it. And I was raised in a family where you sit down and you have conversations with people and you talk about all kinds of stuff. And I lose that ability. Today we had a family get together and I kept trying to talk and everyone would get quiet and look at me and I'd start saying it and then it was like, well, that's not the right word. And then I'd stop and I'd kind of stutter over something and it's like I can't recall pretty simple words. I don't know if do you experience that at all, where your language centers are suddenly kind of different?
It depends.
And it comes out wrong, or I'll say things in the wrong order. That's the weirdest thing for me.
No, when you completely word salad yourself almost.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I feel odd sometimes. I feel slow, sluggish. Yeah. There are days where I've gotten a lot of sleep, and and I feel completely like I'm in tune, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Days
that I don't get a lot of sleep, where I feel just the same, good, ready to go.
Yeah.
But then there are the opposites, where I feel really sluggish after getting a shit ton of sleep. Or maybe, I don't know, it could just be that whatever I've been exposing my brain to has just kind of jellified it, where I feel like I've focused so hard on so much that I become just like this like blinders on, and I'm just going straight forward, and everything else in the world is muted.
Yeah.
Just like a bizarre chain of events.
But I know exactly what you're talking about.
Where there's...
You're just getting through.
Yeah. I'm getting through, but I'm going specifically in one direction, and that's the direction that I'm going to stay going. And I feel that brings with it also like that lack of outside perspective. On our memories and on our just day-to-day lives.
Maybe my brain is getting lazy.
Is that what it is?
Maybe, because I'm not in theater anymore, so I'm not actively memorizing anymore. When I'm depressed, I don't exert my mental capacities, really. A lot of work that I have done has been pretty either mundane and repetitious, or one time really intense, but I don't have to memorize anything. Like sometimes I have personal assistant work and they have me do stuff that I will never have to do again, so I don't have to memorize anything. So it's like my brain isn't using those centers, and then I'm not sitting around really telling stories of, like, sometimes people sit around telling stories of things that they've experienced or things that they've done, and they're so colorful and they're so rich, and I just cannot recall my memory that intensely.
No, I completely understand that. I used to be so much better at telling stories. I could just pull, like...
Your memory?
A bit of folklore that I would just be like, that reminds me of this kind of story, where I'd be like, here, let me tell you about why Loki's an asshole.
Yeah.
And, we would go into, like, just a whole bit of just, like, it's the fact that I feel like it might just be a thing of this age where we don't really tell stories anymore in terms of, like, in interpersonal relationships.
You don't have to remember anything because you can Google it.
Yeah. I mean, no, but definitely don't. I don't have to memorize anything. I can just look it up anytime I want.
Yeah. And if I have to, like, remember something to do that day, I make a list of to-dos on my phone, which, yes, helps me remember, but also does not require any brain then work to retain that stuff.
We have a computer brain that works for us. And it's great.
Cool.
Yeah, super great.
I totally cut you off in mid-story.
No, I don't know.
Okay. I don't. Memory. We both forgot.
Yay! So, ultimately, I mean, what can be done in terms of, like, remembering better or remembering...
Happier things.
Helping
your memory. There's been a few times recently where I sit in the moment that I'm experiencing. It's so beautiful, and I'm like, I just want to remember this. And I try to stare at everything and really take it in and breathe it in and remember the little things. And I will remember wanting to remember something, but I won't remember what the moment is. So maybe taking those steps to slowly work towards that. Journaling. I
have moments, fleeting, just images of good moments that I can pinpoint, and I can usually, like, if I really, like, have the wherewithal that I can take a photo of something, then I can just, like, add that little extra kickstart.
True. If I see a photo, if I wrote down something, the journal entry for that day, I will remember it. It'll come back to me. So maybe I need to practice writing down happier things, because I would like to remember the good moments with my friends and the good moments with my life and the good things that I've done for myself that I just don't remember later. There's so many times where I feel so not proud of myself. I feel like I haven't accomplished anything near what I should have accomplished by this age. And then it's like, but I've forgotten almost all the things that I have, and I'm not giving myself credit for all the shows I was in and the music that I've done, or the friendships that I've worked on, or, the traveling I've done and what that took for me to get to that point.
Yeah. It's a lot of giving yourself credit where credit is due.
I don't know how to do. I've never practiced that, really.
No, I'm equally terrible at it. The few things that I was like super happy with from last year that I could think of off the top of my head, I was really happy that we started this.
Yes.
That is like one of the proudest things this is one of the proudest things I've ever done, and I'm happy to share it with you.
I'm happy to share with you too.
And like some of the work projects that I've worked on in the last year, and some friends that I've both elected to keep and those that I've elected to let go.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. Like you can take solace in the fact that you may not be able to remember all the good things that happen, but you can know that they did exist. You may not remember them as clearly as you do the bad things, but they are there. All the same. They may be amorphous. They may be not nearly as frequent.
Yeah.
But we can always take solace in the fact that they are there. And there are ones waiting just around the corner. Always.
That's nice.
Yeah, I thought that would be nice. And on that note, follow us on Instagram at HAYHU Podcast. Like our Facebook page, and if you want to send us something directly, go ahead and email mailbag@howareyouholdingup.com.
Thank you guys so much for listening in today, and we're really grateful for you. We're curious about what experiences you've had with memory and how you try to retain your happy memories so they can be around to help you when things are rough.
Yeah, let us know.
I'd love to hear it. I'd be interested.
It makes both our days.
Yeah, it does. Well, and as always.
As always.
Don't tell us to just get over it.